right, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Building a Library Ambassador Program panel. My name is Melissa Tidd. I'm from SUNY Orange. I am moderating this panel today. And our speaker is Amanda Lowe from the University at Albany. Amanda is the Outreach and Marketing Librarian at the University at Albany. She has an MLS from the University at Buffalo and a BS in English from SUNY Oneonta. Her research focuses on library marketing and outreach with a concentration on social media, reference services, and library programming. Before we get started, we just want to remind people that this session is being recorded and to please stay muted unless invited to speak. But please feel free to write your questions in the chat, and at the end, we will get to as many of them as we can. And without further ado, here's Amanda.
Hi, everyone. First, can folks see my presentation screen? I have two screens, and sometimes I don't know which one I'm sharing.
Yep, we can see your slide. We can see your slides.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining me at 11 o'clock on a Friday at the end of a conference. I appreciate those that are here. We'll talk a little bit about building a library ambassador program, what I did during a pandemic year to start a program, which wasn't my original intention, but I'm going to talk about how it went for us. So why an ambassadors program? Why did I want to do this? So I'm going to tell you a little story. I was really looking for a way to further engage our students in a very student-centric way. I believe heavily as a marketing philosophy that our biggest strength is word of mouth in combination with other things. So we serve undergraduates, a lot of us primarily. We want to get them talking amongst their peers, spreading the good word about the libraries, because they're going to listen to each other more than they'll listen to us sometimes. So if you can get them talking and knowledgeable about all the services and resources we provide, that could really be a boon to us. And how could we do that? I started talking to other people across campus and that have ambassador programs. Like we have purple and gold ambassadors that do things with alumni, and you see them, they have like shirts and you see them around our campus. And I was like, this would be really cool if we had something like this for the libraries. So I started looking around on the web to see if this is something that existed at other libraries, and I found a couple. One of them was UW-Madison Libraries, and they had this really neat program that was volunteer oriented. They listed all their benefits. They had an application form that they had. They had really cool shirts that they gave their ambassadors. So they obviously have a budget. And I was like, okay, well, let me bring this to my director and see what she says about it. She really liked the idea, and sooner than I would know, I was told that it was put in our strategic plan, and now this is something that I had to do. But I wanted to do it, so it wasn't an issue. I was happy to provide a different avenue for us to market our services and our resources. So when I got started, it was about 2 years ago, I started really trying to get this going on my own while trying to balance everything else I was trying to do in terms of marketing. And I'm also providing reference services. So it was a lot of starts and stops, a lot of trial and error. And eventually I decided I needed another person to help me get this off the ground. So I applied to what we call our Anna Rakowski Lee graduate assistantship. I put forth a proposal, and I got a graduate student to assist me with getting this up off the ground for the 2020-2021 academic year, so this past year. I started sending out the job description. We were starting to receive applicants, and then the pandemic happened. Of course, put a lot of people's plans on hold. We stopped reviewing applications for about a month because we didn't know what was going to happen. And we said, you know what, is this something we can do online if we're completely online? And I was like, I still want to go ahead with this. I have this graduate assistant position. Let's do it. So we kind of had to shift things around a little bit, but this unforeseen circumstance actually wound up helping me create a more robust program, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So the big goal of creating an ambassadors program for me was to have a more student-centric marketing and outreach approach. So some measurable goals that I saw were increasing library awareness and knowledge through their peer-to-peer interactions. So they're not getting it just from me or other librarians or library staff, they're getting it from their peers. I wanted to increase our social media engagement. Where are a lot of our undergraduate students? They're on social media. We have a following. Why not reach them there through their peers? I wanted to increase attendance at library events. If you have your student body talking about things that you're doing, you're going to get more people in chairs, more butts in seats, right? And I also wanted to increase the overall traffic into our buildings. We have 3, and they all have different demographics that tend to be in them. So I want to increase that traffic. And then I, on the side, kind of put, how would you go about measuring these things? For me, I'm more of a qualitative data person. I like to observe what is happening, talk to our students, and kind of figure out what tone or vibe, as the students like to say, that we're throwing off. So I do it that way, though there are, quantitative approach has its merit too, through analytics and pulling stats of your door count and whatnot. So once you decide that you want to do this, where do you go next, right? So like I said, look at some aspirational ambassador programs online. They don't have to be library ones. You can look at other, maybe there are social media ambassadors for different campuses. Maybe there's something like Purple and Gold, like we have at UAlbany. What are they doing? What are their students responsible for? What are some of the things, if they have a website that you can look at? What is their application like? What are their benefits that they're providing students? What are their expectations? What do you like from these programs that you're looking at that you would like to then take and incorporate into your program? Another thing to look at too is, are they volunteer or are they paid? Our program is volunteer. We don't have the money to pay students to do this, but we make sure that the benefits would be enough to have people want to do that. And I'll talk about that as well. So once you know what you want to do, you're going to create a timeline of how you're going to get things done. So we decided that we were going to go full steam ahead in the fall, create the program, start marketing it, and then in the spring semester of 2021, we were going to do our selection orientation and have our first cohort of students. But your timeline could be different. You could decide that you want to take the entire year to build your program, and then the following fall, that's when you want to start your promotion and getting students to apply to select and orientation and that kind of thing. So building the program, you're going to want to decide for you what you want your ambassadors to do. And I'll walk you through the handbook we provided, because we kind of outline what we wanted our students to do. Originally, before the pandemic, what I wanted this program to be was kind of like a library street team. I wanted them to go and spread the good word about the libraries at in-person events, which the pandemic kind of made a little hard because we didn't have as many students on campus. Wanted to make sure I was reaching all the remote students, so it shifted to a more online thing. But I really wanted to do the in-person tabling and at events and having them create events, which now that the pandemic it's not over, but it's winding down and we're returning to a new normal, that's something that will be possible in the next academic year. So what do you want them to do? How many do you want to have? If this is the first time thing that you're doing, you probably don't want to go too big. You want a nice number to work with, and you don't know what kind of response you're going to get. My aspirational goal was to have at least 10 people, 10 solid students that were interested to go forward with the program. And again, I'll talk about this when I get to the application selection part a little bit more, but we did get I think about 20 applicants at one point that we were able to pick from, and we went with 10, and then some people dropped off, so we had 6 by the end of our program, which isn't bad. It's over 5, so I was happy with where we were, and there did show that there was an interest. Again, is this volunteer or paid opportunity? Do you have the funding to pay them a little bit? There are some library ambassador programs that I ran across on the web that do have a small like stipend, kind of like a student assistant, that pay like $10 an hour. Are you going to just have them be volunteers and have benefits like being aligned on their CV or resume, being able to work with them closely so you can provide a reference in the future? Are you going to give certificates? Are you going to give them library swag? Is the benefit just being more knowledgeable about the libraries? That's for you to decide what those are. And of course, it's not only benefits to the students, it's benefits to you in the libraries as well. So how is this program going to be benefiting you? Is it going to be increasing your awareness of the different resources and services and helping you market them better? That's the big one for us. Will this just be an in-person opportunity, or will you extend it to remote students? At first, when we were still talking about this pre-pandemic, it was just going to be an in-person student. If you were a seated student, the opportunity was only going to extend to you. Of course, with the pandemic happening and having to think about how we're going to utilize our students, we did have people on campus, but we were shifting everything to be more of an online opportunity for what they would be doing. So we extended it to remote students, and this is where it comes in when I mean that it made the program more robust. Now we weren't only reaching our seated students, now we can also have a online contingent, and I plan on keeping this up throughout the program because I found it to be a benefit to us. This is a whole group of students that sometimes we have a really hard time reaching. So now with remote student ambassadors, you have kind of like a liaison embedded in the community, online student community that can reach those folks. And what populations do you want to target as well? Do you want your cohort to just be undergraduates, just graduate students, a mix of both? We decided to do both. I just thought that there are different ways that you can reach these different groups. And if you have both folks in the ambassadors program, then you can kind of like do different things. And I'll show you what the difference was, what our graduate student ambassadors did compared to what our undergraduate student ambassadors did. Once you have a program set up, and that took the shape of a handbook for us, which I'm going to share in the chat right now. Let me know if the link works. So you can just peruse it as I'm talking if you want. Once you have that all set, that's when you want to figure out how you're going to market this event and how you're going to, this program, and how you're going to brand it as well, because you want it to be recognizable by folks. So we created a logo. I should say we, my graduate assistant, who is awesome, Jillian, she created this logo. We put it on all our stuff. And she also put together a great distribution list. And we kind of talked together and we're like, who would be interested probably the most about these things? So we looked at the different majors, what majors might be interested in what we're offering. Because it was something that turned into more of a creating online content kind of thing, we decided that majors like communications, business marketing, oh no, okay, I will see how I can get that out to people that want it in the hub after this, so I don't take up time. I'll show you through the handbook, we'll go through it together, and then I'll put something over in the hub for folks that want to take a look at it. Sorry about that. So we looked at different majors that might be interested in what we were offering. So communications, business, marketing, English, library and information science, of course, since we have that as a graduate opportunity here. And then we thought about different clubs or groups that we coordinate with often, like the graduate office, our undergraduate research office, admissions orientation, and something that's called UAlbany Go, which is a student run operation. And we sent them an email, an e-flyer that said, hey, can you share this over your listservs? Can you share our social media posts? We have this opportunity that's going to be happening with some dates, as well as some information sessions that their students could go to. And then we also made sure that the overall UAlbany account for our social media knew that it was happening too, so they could share that in their stories on Instagram. And a lot of folks did share stuff, which I was very happy about. You want to figure out where and when you're going to post these materials. We weren't really on campus, so we figured it wasn't beneficial for us to have a lot of print materials, so we decided not to. In the fall, we plan on having print flyers around our podium. It's where a lot of the print materials are, with a QR code to our application and website. But we stuck to online, so email, e-flyers, that kind of thing, and social media, of course. And we also built a website, which I'm going to show you. Hopefully it is up here somewhere. Oh wait, okay. So we built this website too as kind of a landing page with a link to our application, a little bit about the benefits of the programs, what it is, and this program framework. So going forward with the program, we created something called a brand ambassador, content generation ambassador, and campaign ambassador. The one thing I wish I can change when we went into this, which we'll be changing for the fall, is actually linking to a description of what these are. I did have a lot of students email us and we're like, oh man, we probably should have explained a little bit more, but it wasn't a big deal. More people were just like, brand ambassador, that sounds great, and they just applied, so it wasn't too big of an issue. We made sure we put commitments up front, which changed a little bit because of an abbreviated semester, which I'll address, and what they would be doing on campus and online. Here's a little bit of the marketing that we did. So before anything was live, we kind of wanted to tease what was happening, or that there was a new opportunity that was going to be presented. So we did this post, and then we went over into our Instagram stories and said, we're having an ambassadors program, and that's how folks found out about it. And then we started posting things about information sessions and information how to do that, how to register for it. We had a link tree. People can go over there and do that. The emails that we included, this is one of the last emails that we sent out, a draft of the last email. Told folks that we had these info sessions and to please register, share this information with the students. They went out on listservs. And we had some professors too that sent them out. They heard about the program because they're on social media heavily. They contacted us. They're like, hey, do you have any materials I could send out to some of my classes about this? I think it's a cool opportunity. And they sent stuff out for us, which was really nice. So once we promoted it, we had to have a way for students to express that they're interested. So we created an application. Going forward, I might call this a volunteer form instead of an application, just because application, to me, sometimes people are like, oh, it's a job, I'm going to get paid. So we're probably going to change that language to a volunteer form instead. But we used Qualtrics, so it was an online form only. If paper is something that you want to do, I don't see why you couldn't. You just have to figure out how you're collecting that. We found that just doing a web form was so much easier. Once you're in person doing events, you could probably have a tablet or something where people can fill out the form right there and then. But for us, we just pushed it out through our website that was linked on our homepage and through our social media. So we want to talk about what kind of questions you want to include on your application. So ours is right here. Of course, we wanted to know like the basics. What is your name, email? We wanted them to provide their UAlbany email specifically, so we know that they were a current student. We want to know their majors, what academic year are they. We're going to change this form a little bit because we want to know if they're a second semester freshman. We kind of don't want to include first semester freshmen or first year transfers because they haven't really been on the campus a lot yet. And we want people that have been in the libraries, hopefully are excited about them and can, really get out there and talk about the libraries. We want to know how often they are using our libraries, if they've visited all three, which one is their favorite. And then we kind of did some Likert scales of to gauge their knowledge about social media, since that's where we were putting our focus this past semester. How comfortable they are in a public setting, because we want these people to interact with others. So if it's a student that really is uncomfortable with interacting with their peers, this is probably not the program for them. We wanted to gauge their level of comfort with online platforms like Zoom, in case we got stuck doing Zooms forever. And then if they were willing to travel to the libraries. This was more if it was a commuter student that was applying, or someone who's remote nearby. We also wanted to know what their familiarity was with different creative applications, since we were going to be asking them to create some content. Oh, it's not going to let me go forward. But after this, we had just some fill in the blank questions, asking them about what their interest was in the program, why they wanted to join the program, essentially, and what they think the libraries could be doing better with things. Just to see how engaged they were, because we really wanted students to go through and fill out this application to the fullest, because if they're not doing that, they're probably not that interested or just filling it out to fill it out. And I'll show you some examples of application responses we got and kind of the criteria that we went off of for making our selections for students. So once you have your application, that's all set. It's included in your promotional package. You're going to open your applications up, probably put out a post like this. This is on our social media, that people can start applying, and hold some interest meetings during that time. So if folks have questions about what it is that you're offering, they can ask them then during those meetings. And we had a number of people, I think we wound up having 4 or 5 different interest meetings at different times so we can catch different people. And we had like 5 or 6 people at each of those meetings, which is pretty great. Some of them applied, some of them didn't. Some of them talked to their friends about it. There was different, it's hard to gauge when you're doing a virtual kind of thing, if people are excited. Some students definitely came across that way on camera. Others didn't even turn on their camera. But in the future, these info sessions will be in person. So I think it'll be a little bit easier to gauge that. So you have applications rolling in. We chose to do ours on a rolling basis, so we didn't really put a deadline on it, but we figured once we got enough, we would really start combing through and decide who we wanted. So criteria that makes a good ambassador, like I said, are they enthusiastic? Are they filling out the entire application? That's a good starting point and pretty much was our main criteria. Are they enthusiastic about the libraries, and do they meet the requirements for what years we want? Like, we wanted to make sure we had a good mix of students at different levels of study. So we didn't want to overpower with just graduate students. We didn't want to overpower things with just freshmen. So we wanted a mix when we were selecting people as well. How many people are going to select? I mentioned that earlier. Our goal was 10 to start out with, because we didn't want it to be over, not manageable for us. If you're starting to go through your selection process and your pool is too small, you can hold out a little longer if you want. If you see that you have some good applicants, take what you have and run with it. Start it up. If your pool is too big, I don't think that's a problem, really. I don't think you can have too many. That just means you have more people to pick from. And if you have too many students and you have, and you only want to do the 10, then you tell people that we've met the number of people we want to accept. We liked your application. Please try applying again for our next cohort next semester. So they know that, you do want them, you just had too many people apply. Once you make your selection, you're going to want to email folks, let them know that they have been selected. Email the people that you didn't select so they know that you did not go with them. I should also say you should set up something too when you receive applications that something goes out to folks so they know that you received their materials in that. So make sure you do that as well. And you're going to want to set up orientation dates with them. We did 2 dates, and we also recorded our orientation on Zoom and sent it to people who just had conflicts with their schedules that they just couldn't make it. And then we set up individual follow-ups with those folks just to go over any questions they might have about what the expectations for the program were for them. In terms of materials that we created for orientation, of course, we had our handbook, which I'm going to show you, and we created a presentation to go through as well. The orientation was about an hour and a half. Our aim was 2 hours, but an hour and a half wound up being just right for what we wanted to go over. Because of the pandemic, we were online for this. I foresee in the future, since I want to keep a remote student contingent, that it'll be a mix of in-person and online for our orientations, or I'll do 2 separate ones. It'll really depend on how many people we have that are online. Obviously, we couldn't provide refreshments, but I did send them what I like to call our swag. We have a crazy swag collection here at UAlbany. It's one of my favorite things to buy. And it's really popular at our tabling events. So I mailed folks that were remote, I mailed them their swag, and then the people that were more in person, our commuter, they actually scheduled some time to come in and pick up that swag. So they all had like drawstring bags and magnets and our paper materials with them. During the orientation, we decided to do some icebreakers just so they could get to know each other, since they would be working together on things throughout the semester. And we did some team building exercise and brainstorming at the end as well. Some examples from our applications when I said not very engaged and engaged for criteria. Here are the questions, the fill-in questions towards the end of our application. We had a number of students that didn't even bother with them. To me, if you couldn't feel bothered to even put one thing in there, you're not really engaged. And then we had the opposite end of the spectrum, students that really filled these out, like what interests you in this opportunity, and one suggestion you have for the library is to improve outreach. Like there were a good number of students that wound up being our ambassadors that really took the time to fill these out. And those are the kind of people that you want when you're going through this. So our handbook, I'll show you here. So this is the handbook. Obviously, it's been updated since the end of our semester, but this is what it looks like, and this is what our students got as we went over. Of course, we have a table of contents with our program overview, their commitment for the semester, the different tracks I had mentioned earlier that we had for them, and of course, during orientation, we also went over in detail information about the libraries and our services and resources, because part of this, joining this, is to make them more knowledgeable about what the libraries have as well. So they got a whole schooling on everything that we provide, as well as the things that we want them to share with their peers. And of course, we have to include professionalism. And because they're on social media, we want to make sure that there is a guidebook for how to do that, what we're looking for, do's and don'ts kind of thing. We included our overview, so the whole mission of the program, why we're doing this, and then of course we listed out some perks or benefits for them as well, just as a reminder of what they are getting out of this program. We made sure that they were very well aware of the commitment that they were doing, since this is a volunteer program. We didn't want to make it seem like a job since we're not paying them. So what we wanted was a 2-hour orientation, which wound up being an hour and a half, which wasn't bad. We wanted them to have touch-based meetings, because we want to make sure that what we're asking them to do is working. So we have scheduled 3 of them for the semester, which we did wind up having 3, even though the semester was a little shorter this spring. And then we want them to participate in at least 4 campus-wide events, whether that be online or in person. Of course, we couldn't really do that this past semester because there just wasn't a lot of things that they could participate in. We really didn't have tabling or resource fairs that they could participate in this semester, but there will be in the future, and library events, of course. We outlined some short-term projects like creating social media that we want them to do, or maybe they want to do projects that are more long-term, so a series of posts throughout the semester. We have a podcast called Librarians with Lattes that we occasionally ask students to come on and talk about different resources that they like, or we had one student talk about National Poetry Month. So these are some of the more longer term projects or more involved projects that they could get involved with. We outlined what their deliverables would be in terms of content submission, since that was the main thing we were asking them to do in the spring. So the meetings, content ideas, and content submission were kind of one path, and they had to do 3 of those for this semester, and we decided not to do the campus events again because we couldn't really do that. We don't really have an hour commitment, which is something a lot of people ask about. How many hours during the semester is this? We put in kind of a guesstimate there of 20-25 hours per semester, but really it comes down to how many projects. So I'm going to do X number of social media projects, or I'm going to do X number of videos, and we kind of equated that to a time commitment for this semester, just because it worked out that way. And of course, the meetings and orientation are included in there as well. And they get a certificate at the end of their participation if they have fulfilled the commitment requirement for the semester, like they did X number of projects. If they didn't do that, they're not going to get the certificate for that semester. And they're very well aware of that. We only had 1 student that didn't meet the commitment that joined us this year. I think they just got a little busy at the end of the semester, and then they just couldn't do their final project. I mentioned tracks before. So the brand ambassador, their whole thing is the branding, resources, advocating, navigation, and design. That's what brand stands for. And those are the folks that would be going to tabling events, be very front facing. They're coming with us places, they're making their faces known. Those are those students. And we have more of the content students. They're creating content for us for social media, or it'll be print in the future. Those are those students. And then campaign ambassadors, they're creating different campaigns, just like as it says. Are we doing a banned books campaign? Are we doing pick your trending topic that we can relate back to the libraries? Those are those students. They're not limited to these tracks. If they want to do a blend of all 3, I'm fine with that. But if they're more comfortable with something than something else, then they can just stay on one. We want it to be fun. It is a volunteer opportunity. We want them to have fun doing these things. Here's a little overview. And again, apologies for not being able to send it now. I'll put it in the hub for folks that want to take a closer look at this handbook. Outreach and engagement obviously is a large component of being an ambassador. So we kind of list some on-campus opportunities for going forward for them. Some of these include doing orientation open houses, being a guest speaker at their academic clubs and student organizations. Like, that's a big one that we really want to stress students doing. So whether that's them standing up in their clubs and organizations and talking about the library resources for 5 minutes, or having me or another librarian come in and talk about the different resources and services the libraries can provide to them, that's something they can do. We have a number of different events that happen in the libraries usually. So getting people to come to campus conversations or helping to staff that event, helping to staff different stressless events during our mindfulness time during midterms and finals. figuring out some poetry month events that we want to do. Maybe they have a favorite professor that writes poetry and they think they'd be great for an event. Help us set that up. And of course, all the other tabling events that happen throughout the semester, open house, orientation, accepted students, preview days, that kind of thing. And of course, there's the off-campus engagement component, which is our social media, which we are just about on everything. I think there's some kind of benefit to just about every different facet of social media. Of course, Facebook has kind of wound it down in terms of what a lot of folks do on there. So we don't focus very heavy on Facebook. The focus for our ambassadors tends to be Instagram because it's very visual, and a lot of our ambassadors are undergraduates or graduates with an interest in Instagram, though they have created some stuff for Twitter as well. Snapchat is something we don't do a whole lot with just yet, but I'm hoping with ambassadors we can figure out how we want to use that. And then of course, YouTube, creation of more long form videos that some of our ambassadors are interested in, testimonial videos, something we want to do for the future, or maybe having them interview some librarians. Spotify is just a fun account, and I put our Spotify at the very end of this presentation and a playlist they created if you're interested in checking it out. It's just a fun, informal way for folks to connect with our ambassadors. And we also have librarian playlists there too. We also have BuzzFeed quizzes, and I mentioned our podcast, just another way to engage. We gave them a overview of the libraries and clickable things within this handbook, so they can learn more about the different resources we have. And in the orientation, we did go over them in depth. And again, there's more examples of resources. Just your standard professionalism page, of course. And then we had a handbook for how to engage in social media and what our expectations are. And this goes quite in depth because we do provide them with an opportunity to do social media takeovers, which I'll talk about a little bit. A lot of this is taken directly from the university's social media policy and other policies that we just liked around the web. So there's a lot of that. And of course, some style guide considerations as well. So that's what they were given. Okay, back here. So this year was a little weird, so we had to make some adjustments to the requirements for an abbreviated semester. So there was no in-person events that we could have them at. So the focus was, again, on just creation of content and team building this past semester. And their participation was project-based. So they created takeovers, they made polls and quizzes. There's a lot of different things that they did for social media, and let me tell you, our engagement on those things was quite high. How do I go about communicating with our ambassadors, especially since they're all remote? I was remote. I want them to be able to access me to ask questions at any time. So we set up a Slack account. If you're not familiar with Slack, it's kind of like AIM on steroids. It's a great direct message communication tool that you can use with the team. They were very active over on there. I had students coming up with ideas with each other, and it was really great. I highly recommend using that. Though if you have a campus that has something like Microsoft Teams, which my campus does, I'm not a big fan, you can use something like that as well. Of course, we communicate it via email, and we also set up an Outlook group. And I'll show you what that looks like. So this actually ties directly into your Outlook email. So if you scroll down in your Outlook, there is a spot for groups. And what's great about here is that it works with all Microsoft things. So if you have documents in OneDrive, you can put them here in your group. So this is a place for us to have all of our content that students need it to be able to access. So if they were creating something and they needed the logo, they could find it here. If they lost their email with the handbook, it was over here as well as the orientation recording. We made sure that was linked here. And it was a place for them to submit their very first assignment, which was kind of like a freebie, to send us a photo and bio for us to post on social media. That was the very first thing that we wanted them to do, to introduce themselves to the UAlbany community. So they submitted that themselves over here. A great thing about groups too is we were able to schedule out kind of like deadlines with them for, okay, we want your first project by this time. So we had this content scheduler in here that you can like set your drafts to when we want to publish it. And it would send them email reminders to do that. We had this notebook as well. They can just have notes. They didn't really utilize this because they were very involved over on Slack, which is fine, but it was an option for them to come over here and use this as brainstorming. And again, content ideas. We did, I believe it was a Miro, where they could just brainstorm all these events, and Jillian, my GA, just took that and put it in here. And we're looking forward to doing some of these when we're back in person. So they came up with some really great ideas: library bingo, author events, which kind of have to have a budget for, and I explained to them, but maybe there's some local folks that will come in for no charge. Some social media campaigns they were interested in, some videos that we might want to do in the future, and there's a lot of other things that they came up with. So we had a really good group full of ideas. So yes, Outlook groups, highly recommend for keeping things a little organized and as a communication tool. So I'm going to take you through some of the contributions that the students made. They range from social media takeovers to, like I said, the memes, some quizzes through Instagram stories. Some of them made short videos. Mostly we had a number of library and information science graduate students that were part of our team this past semester. And they made some quick little fun tutorials of how they use different databases that are their favorites that were actually really great. And of course, engaging on social media, our engagement was way up once we started posting about ambassadors. They were sharing their posts to their own private Instagrams, and you know, it was really great. Of course, Spotify playlists, and then some of them did talk about the libraries in their classes and clubs too. Let me go over to here first. So here's our Instagram page, and I'm just going to show you a prime example of a great takeover that our ambassador Rin did towards the end of the semester. She was remote. She was down in Washington, D.C., and she had some of our print materials and swag, and she used that to create this really great takeover. We do provide students with our Instagram password for that, and we change it right after. Another way you can do this for takeovers is you can ask them to send the materials that they're going to use that day for takeover, and you post them so you don't have to share your password, but that's at your discretion.
I'm a senior at the University of Albany, majoring in English and minoring in educational studies. I'm a library ambassador, and I'm taking you guys with me today to Washington, D.C. I'm here at the World War II Memorial, just one of many historical places here at the National Mall. If you want to dig deeper into the history, use some of our many resources available at the UAlbany Library website. For today's takeover, I've been using an iPhone, but if you're lucky enough to be near campus still, you can always visit the IMC, where we have recording equipment for loan. We have a lot of other opportunities and equipment also to help you with your content creation. If you guys want to do what I do and become a library ambassador, we are looking at applications on a rolling basis. Visit the link tree in our bio on Instagram for more details.
And she just took some nice pictures. This next one is probably my favorite. It's our GovDocs bookmark, and just really nice. And then she did a nice sign off as well. So that's what a takeover looked like. That got a lot of hits, which we were so happy to have. Here are some examples of the more short tutorial videos. I won't show you the whole thing, but just give you an idea of what some of our students did. Again, these were created by Library and Information Science graduate ambassadors, so this is what this looks like.
Hi, my name is Amanda, and today I'm going to show you a quick tutorial on how to look for a journal article on the University at Albany Library website. So the first thing that you want to do is go to the homepage, which is library.albany.edu. At the top, you can see the Tools tab. So I am going to use a hypothetical example. Let's say that a professor of mine said, I really want you to check out this article. It's written by James O'Toole.
So that goes on for 5 minutes, but you see she said, say if a professor of mine, so it's again putting in place of the student, you're a student looking for information. How are they going about doing that? So you're getting it again from your peer. We had 40 views on this. It might have not been the best platform. This might have done better as a YouTube video and then sharing that to something like Twitter. But this was nice, not only because she was creating this from a student perspective, but she's also a graduate student studying to be a librarian, and it gave her some practice at creating a tutorial video. So that was very nice. Another thing we had them do, say I mentioned National Poetry Month. I extended them the opportunity to create videos of them reading some of their favorite poems. So one of our ambassadors did that, and this is what that looked like. She started out with some music, so I'll skip ahead a little bit.
When Maze and Frankie Beverly come out of my house, Mom's eyes close. She raises the spatula as if she were going to orchestrate the gumbo into existence, turns the knob so that we feel the bass thundering in the wall. At the start of verse 1, she points to Pops.
So that's a little bit of that. And you'll notice on all of these posts too, we make sure that our ambassador logo is there so folks know that these are students posting and they're part of our ambassador program. You'll see here, like this is an ambassador project. She did speed dating the databases. And as you can imagine, it's set up like speed dating. So the, where they're located, their hobbies, their dislikes, and these were kind of funny. And they had, some likes on them as well. We had one of our ambassadors had a daughter. She had her in front of one of our libraries with some swag, and this one, we had over 76 likes on it and some comments, which is nice. Another one of our speed dating posts. And of course, these are our introduction posts. These are the ones that had, you can't see all the statistics. I'm not on my phone to look at our dashboard. Or actually, can I look at the dashboard from here? I'm not logging into our account, so I can't show you the dashboard, but you would see that there are a bunch of saves and shares on their individual posts that they made to introduce themselves. So looking ahead, we recently just had our library newsletter released, and they're actually featured in our newsletter. Let's see if I can get to it. So not only other students will see this, but the UAlbany community, so they can see this is something we're doing for outreach, which just looks good on us. And it has just a little bit about them and why they decided to be a library ambassador. And that's featured in our newsletter. We have already started promotion on our social accounts for this coming fall. And we've already started getting applications. We just posted this on, yesterday. We posted this yesterday, and it has 10 likes, and we've already started getting applications for the fall, which we're really excited about. And we'll start reaching out to those students probably closer to August. We're creating promotional materials this time because now we're going to be on campus. We're going to have ability to go into different buildings and start posting things and working with different people to get things up in res halls. So we are going to have promotional materials, and we've already started creating those for the fall. And there are a number of our ambassadors that are staying with us. They decided that they will be joining us in the fall, which we're really excited about. And we're going to reach out to them about coming to welcome back events that very like first opening weekend before the first day of classes, if they're here, which we're excited about. And just in general, looking ahead, having ambassadors in person is going to be such a good experience because we'll be able to do so much more with them, and cultivate a nice, I want to say genuinely a nice feeling amongst them. Probably camaraderie would be nice. So they tell their friends, hey, you want to be a library ambassador? I'm having a lot of fun in this group. I'm learning a lot about the libraries, and I get to share that with other people. So that's what we're looking to build when they're in person, is hopefully some friendships too. Here are some things at the end of the semester that I had students say to me about their experience this past spring. They had a lot of fun learning about outreach and user services. Of course, this was from one of our LIS students. It was a great experience, glad I could help. Looking forward to coming back in the fall. I had so much fun creating content for our social media channels. So they had a good time, and I was very happy to hear it. And again, I mentioned the Spotify playlist. So check that out if you're interested. They had fun picking out some of their favorite songs to put on it. And here's my contact information. And does anyone have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask them, or throw them in the chat.
Yeah, that was good timing there. I actually have a question.
Yes.
For your podcast, what kind of I guess, like, what do you use to make the podcast? Is it on like Zoom, or do you have like microphone, or?
So we actually are fortunate enough to have a podcasting table with microphones and software set up to do that. The person that I actually produced that podcast with, I believe, if he's still here, is actually on this. Yeah, Tyler is actually in this, so he helped me produce that. And we use Audacity to record, and then we can edit from there. We host it, well, we've hosted it on numerous things at this point, but right now we're hosting it on Anchor FM, which has been working out. Not all our episodes are loaded to that yet. That's a future project. We're trying to move everything over, but we do have a number of those. And what's great about Anchor FM is that if you don't have the ability to record in our kind of studio, you can do it remotely. It's a phone app, so you can record from your phone. You can have people do it that way. And it also distributes to a variety of platforms. So Anchor FM not only will have it there, it will go to Spotify, it will go to Stitcher, and another number of other podcasting music sites. Other questions? Like I said, I will put that handbook in the hub. My apologies again for that. I thought it was just a PDF.
Well, I must say this was a very informative presentation, and definitely has me thinking of ideas too for our library. So
yeah,
we'll see how that turns out. So I guess if there are no more questions, I guess we can just end it there. Thank you, Amanda, for this, again, very informative presentation. I hope everyone got something out of it. And we're getting a lot of thank yous in the chat. So that's, yep, great presentation to Amanda. So kudos. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of the conference. Just a reminder that coming up at noon, oh, hold on, I lost my, sorry. Coming up at noon, it's the keynote lunch in room 1, and then there'll be presentations going until 5 o'clock today, which will end the conference, sadly. But again, thank you so much. Thank you to Amanda, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.